Good morning, it's nice to see you.
Likewise.
Hey, we're glad you're here too. Welcome to Vibrant Terra Firma, a co-creative parable in 7 acts. Again, I'm Jim Marshall, I'm with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Glad to be here.
And I'm Jack Lee, I work for the NRCS in Arizona.
You know, before we get started, there's a couple terms in our presentation title we probably need to talk about a little bit. One of them is co-creation. It's a beautiful term, and it's really a creative relationship in which we enter into an accord with other like-minded people and thereby co-create for the highest good of all. It's why we're here today.
And sort of just to break down a parable, as you can see, it's a short allegorical story designed to illustrate or to teach some truth, a vital principle, a moral lesson, or a vibrant reality. And 2015 is the International Year of the Soil. So we wanted to sort of have a quick video for you guys, just sort of break it down and give you a hint of what's to come.
All right, and Steve up in the booth, if you'd run that video, that'd be great. It's coming. It's coming. It's really worth waiting for.
Have you ever had the experience of looking at something in a totally different way? It's like when you look at this, and then suddenly it becomes this. Well, that's how it was with me and soils. And I will never look at soils in the same way again. Soils are hidden from our eye, but if you listen and you watch and you really pay attention, no matter where you are, soils will speak to you. They'll even reveal their past. Watch closely and they will show you what they are really made out of. Soils are like skin, living, breathing. Look at what is hidden right there in plain sight. Colors, shapes, all the living things beneath our feet. William Bryant Logan said that soil is the ecstatic skin of the earth. Living, life-giving, complex, misunderstood, so mysterious. The connector, the protector, the producer. This is soil.
We're going to switch back to our PowerPoint if we can, Steve. There we go. You know, kind of before we get started on our journey today, it's important to kind of take a look back at the future. This picture on the lower right was in Stratford, Texas in 1935. We all remember that was the Dust Bowl. This picture in the top left was in Manzanola, Colorado in 2014, just a year ago. Dust storms of epic proportions out there. Just something to think about as we begin our journey.
Act 1, the 10YR21 Uprising.
We prepared a little vignette for you to get things started today. We really hope you enjoy it.
Farmer Jim, what are you doing?
Who are you?
I am the soil sage.
Well, you know, we're out here in the middle of a 40-acre field. Where did you come from?
from a place far from here, high in organic matter.
Well, I'm glad you're here. My mind was kind of wandering. I'm out here plowing this field. You see this plow? I've used this plow my whole life. My dad used this plow. My dad even tells me that his dad did. This is just how we plow the land. It's so hard to change what we do.
But Farmer Jim, you are destroying your soil. And the nation that destroys its soil destroys itself.
Well, I think that's true, but this is my land. Can I do with it what I want?
Farmer Jim, while the farmer holds the title to the land, actually it belongs to all the people, because civilization itself rests upon the soil.
All right, so you keep saying soil, but isn't it just really dirt? Well, what's the difference?
Be it deep or shallow, red or black, sand or clay, the soil is the link between the rock core of the earth and the living things on the surface. It is the foothold for the plants that we grow. Therein lies the main reason for our interest in soils.
You're starting to make a lot of sense for a weird dude out in the middle of a field. And I think I can start to put some of these things into practice. How did you get so wise, Soil Sage?
Well, I saw all the people hustling early in the morning to go to their factories and their stores and their office buildings to do their job, to get their checks. But ultimately, it's not the office buildings or the jobs that give us our checks. It's the soil. The soil is what gives us the income that supports us all.
I got to shake your hand. Thank you so much for helping me learn a little bit about soil.
It's a pleasure talking to you today, Farmer Jim.
All right, so let's start our journey together. What exactly is the 10YR21 uprising? That funny little letter and number combination is a color. It's from the Munsell Soil Color Book. It's the color black. It's the color of organic matter. So if we can use reduced tillage, it doesn't have to be no-till, but some form of reduced tillage. If we can put cover crops down on our ground, if we can use some conservation practices that really help load organic matter into the soil, it's going to really help preserve and build those soil aggregates. And while it's doing that, we grow complex root networks, and we have burgeoning micro and macro faunal populations.
So the vast majority of the earth, it's not living, it's minerals, it's just a rock. But the soil is what combines your biology with your geology to create the living skin of the soil that is our planet. This whole thing, it's about organic matter, and it's about carbon.
It's a great place to start. All right, so we can look at these two pictures of the soil, and we can see with just the plain eye that soil on the left, it's got about 5% organic matter. We can see how dark it is, how rich it is. It's got a real sort of airy and lofty texture. The one on the right is less than 1% organic matter. It probably hasn't had as much conservation tillage or as much cover crop on it. One of the cool things about organic matter, Jack, that I learned is 1% organic matter in your soil can hold 17,000 to 25,000 gallons of water per acre.
So what is this organic matter? Organic matter is any sort of natural life or compound that has been broken down by plants and animals that fill the variety of roles for your nutrients. It sort of has two basic components. You have your humus, which is already broken down over many, many years, that's able to be used by the soil. And you have your active fraction, which is plants and animals that are in the process of being broken down to become humus later on in time.
So really, how much organic matter is in the soil and why does it matter? So we got to talk some numbers here for a minute. If we go out into a field and we measure down to about 6 inches in that field, it's going to weigh about 2 million pounds. And an acre is about 208 feet by 208 feet. So 1% organic matter weighs about 20,000 pounds. Now in soils where we sort of have depleted organic matter, we got to load them up pretty good. It takes about 10 pounds of organic material, cover crops or crop residue, to build up to 1 pound of organic matter per acre. So if we need to add organic matter to the soil, we've got a little bit of work to do. We've got to add about 200,000 pounds to that acre to get that organic matter to come back up. Is it impossible? No, but I think it's doable.
So what does your organic matter do for your soil? It helps to create those aggregates and those PEDs that makes the soil what it is. It gives it its shape and its form. And it also helps a great amount with erosion. Being a soil conservationist myself, I use what we call the revised universal soil loss equation. And from all the work I found that if you increase your soil organic matter by as little between 1 and 3%, you'll reduce your erosion between 20 and 33%.
Absolutely. All right, just a couple more quick points on soil organic matter. It's really, really important as nutrient supply. It is literally a bank of nutrients in the soil. And so really that reservoir is an amazing thing. That reservoir, as we look at this, 1% organic matter over a year can release about 20 to 30 pounds of nitrogen, 4 to 7 pounds of phosphorus, and some sulfur. And here's the best part about that organic matter. It's in the soil. And as those plants grow and spring and summer progresses, the microbiology breaks that organic matter down and makes it available for plants. One of the things we'll talk a lot about today is water holding capacity. Organic matter is amazing. We're going to use this analogy of a sponge, Jack. And what the amazing thing is that little bit of organic matter can hold up to 90% of its own weight in water. So let's just say we were dreaming and I told you I weighed 200 pounds. That means I could walk around carrying an additional 180 pounds of water. Pretty amazing.
So this sort of gives you that visual aspect. This organic matter, this spongy tissue, has these pores and the holes where the water can sit and, like you said, Jim, sort of bank itself to be used later on for the plants and the different nutrients.
Absolutely. Well, and we need to talk about something, get a few terms out in front of you. AWC is available water capacity. And really what it is, it's sort of the bucket in the soil. It's what's there to hold on to that soil moisture. Two basic components of that available water capacity. There's the mineral component, sand, silt, clay, we all know about that. Not a lot of water can be held in there, and if it is held, it's held really, really tightly. Sometimes the plants get at it. Jack, it's that sponge, it's that soil organic matter sponge that really makes that bucket go full.
All right, so we've been talking about this sponge and how it's great and helpful for the soil. Let's check out a video so we can see it in action.
Yeah, we got a great video of the MSU rainfall simulator. Check it out and we'll make some comments as we go. Steve, if you cue that up, MSU simulator. Driving on, Jack.
All right.
All right, so when we talk about organic matter, let's go to the other way. And you have to realize you guys are working on the land that's probably in continuum. It may be super loaded with organic matter, it may be deficient, or it could be somewhere in the middle. These things we talk about need to be applied to your land individually. So as we decrease organic matter on our soils, here's just some of the things that start to happen. Plant growth becomes very, very difficult. No nutrients, no water, kind of like growing plants in the desert. Soil fertility decreases, available water capacity decreases. Compaction increases, erosion by wind and water. The list goes on and on. And one great quote, Jack, that I love to use, our friend Ray Archuleta, he said, "This soil is naked, hungry, thirsty, and running a fever."
So when your soil is naked, hungry, thirsty, and running a fever, it leaves it very susceptible to all kinds of erosion, especially wind erosion.
Absolutely. Let's check it out. Let's show them what that's all about.
All right. So that's our annual rye cover?
That's our annual rye cover that we grew, absolutely. And we got to hang some laundry up to see how this is all going to work.
All right.
So I'll stand here. See what you can do to stir up some wind there, Jack. Down a little bit.
What?
Turn it down. Yeah, stay back a little bit. We're going to need a tornado today.
All right, just a nice spring breeze.
All right.
You're pretty close on there.
I'm not seeing a whole lot. How about you? All right, let's switch around here a little bit.
All right. Seems that everything that was planted there has stayed there.
Absolutely. The soil's still intact, too. We'll set this back up on our table and let's put down a tray full of soil that maybe hasn't been treated as good as it could, Jack, and let's see what happens.
All right.
This one didn't have any cover on it, and we're going to see what's going to happen with this one. Okay, Jack, we're good. We're good. Well, as you can see, we blew some serious material off that soil. It's a really graphic example of just how bad erosion can be. This whole sheet now sort of has a brownish pall to it. You know, Jack, remind me not to hang my laundry out downwind from where that might be.
That's a good idea.
All right. All right, if we can switch back to the presentation, Steve. All right, so organic matter. Some of these quantities we talk about seem so minute. They so much is done by so little. So a normal, healthy, organic soil, whether it's no-tilled or not, or some sort of conservation tillage where you put some cover crop on it, it's going to have 4 to 6% organic matter. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it does some amazing things. First and foremost, it's about the particle size of that organic matter. It's got an enormous surface to volume ratio, so there's a lot of surface area at work. Secondly, because that organic matter is so intimately mixed in with that soil, it's in intimate contact with that mineral soil fraction. So there's almost unlimited reaction sites within that soil for the interplay of water and nutrients. And Jack, we'll talk about it throughout the presentation. It's that carbon, it's that organic matter that is the fuel in the tank of the soil. It feeds everything, Jack.
Act 2, trillion-dollar assets.
So as we were researching this, I came across this slide, and I'll talk about it in a minute, the thing on the right. But there's some amazing numbers. We'll talk about soils at a small scale and then at a global scale. If we take a teaspoon of soil, Jack, a gram,
all right,
and we look at that and we say, well, we'll do an inventory of what's here. There's between 10,000 and 50,000 species within that tablespoon of soil as far as microbes. That same teaspoon of soil, if we could count all those little guys in there, there's over 1 billion microbes in that teaspoon of soil. Jack, I saw something recently, some new research said, and I saw this ad, it says, in 1 teaspoon of soil, there are more microbes than there are people on the face of the earth. Pretty amazing fact. So when we think about these services these microbes provide, and we sort of put it into nutrient cycling services, these microbes provide between 1.5 and $20 trillion worth of economic benefit worldwide. It is the world's most valuable ecosystem. Picture on the right, just for your information, that's 1 trillion pennies. That's a football field next to it in direct scale.
So if you can sort of get a picture of this, of these, what we call them soiled livestock, are more diverse and more abundant than the animals in the tropical rainforest. So if you get this idea of the Amazon and you think of all the jaguars and snakes and plants, imagine all of that shrunken down and more into 1 gram of soil.
You know, it's amazing. Microbial life could easily survive without us. But if we think about our soil, how our bodies function, we cannot survive without the chemical transformations and those environmental services that those soil microbes provide.
So let's sort of break this down to a dollars and cents type of value. If you lose your most valuable soil, your topsoil, we at the USDA have estimated it's about $28 to get that whole thing replaced there. And just sort of to give you a better idea, a ton of soil spread across just 1 acre is about as thin as a single sheet of paper. I don't know about you, Jim, but I don't want to pay $28 for a single sheet of paper.
No way, Jack. Doesn't work for me either. This is a picture up top of a compaction layer that's been plowed into a soil. It's restricting water flow, and really it's something that can happen in any field anytime there's compaction by any type of tillage. So what we really need to do, and we'll talk about this in our sessions this morning and this afternoon, is grow some cover crops out there. Create some tunnels, create some voids. Cover crops and earthworms, which is Jack's best friend. We love talking about earthworms together. They make this really cool network of pores and really open that soil up. Those crops that are then planted get down deeper. They have more access to nutrients and more access to water. Absolutely great stuff. You know, Jack, if I wanted to till, it's going to cost me 30 to 35 bucks per acre to make a pass across the ground.
You know, all this talk about, tractors going back and forth, I'm feeling kind of antsy. I feel like a race. You feel like racing?
Want to do a race? All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's head to the tables here. All right, if you'd switch to the floor camera, Steve, that would be great. All right, this is kind of a cool setup. You'll love this. What we have is identical containers and little Tupperware containers that have holes in them. We're going to simulate a rainfall event through these. And in our little plastic water jugs, we've got, I don't know, what, 2, 3, 4 inches of soil.
Sounds about right.
Mine is the 35-year no-till soil, full of roots, full of organic matter. What do you got, Jack?
I've got some conventionally tilled soil here. It had some compaction. They manually broke it up. So I just reckon the water should be able to go through pretty well.
All right, and I was thinking about, 6 weeks ago, you and I were out collecting these samples out in Gratiot County. These two soils were about 50 yards from each other. So, hey, I got some green water.
I've got red.
Let's start pouring. Let's make it rain.
All right.
Hey, Jack, how come your container's filling up?
Uh-oh.
I'm still pouring, and there's lots of room in mine.
I'm running all out. Everything's kind of stuck up there. It seems that my pore spaces have collapsed on me, Jim.
So that soil's literally sealed itself off.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we got some more to do. Let's keep an eye on this, but it seems like a little bit of tillage can kind of break down those beds and make them sort of clogged, doesn't it?
Wow.
All right.
Switch back to the PowerPoint?
Yep, switch back to the PowerPoint if you would, Steve. And we did have buckets underneath there to collect that. We had certain terms told us we can't spill water on the stage. All right,
So back to the dollars and cents, because money seems to make the world go around. If you look at it, the $28 we spoke about earlier to replace your topsoil, you're saving $30 by not passing your tractor back and forth. And you also, by not disrupting your soil, you're saving about $22 in nutrients that you would have to add later. So grand total about 80 acres per acre for not doing a thing at all.
$80 per acre. Right, absolutely. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this. Let's quantify it. Let's put it in your wallet, if you will. So let's talk about that estimated fertilizer value of 1% organic matter. Same assumptions, 2 million pounds, top 6 inches of the soil, 1% organic matter. They analyze that organic matter. These are the nutrients. 1,000 pounds of nitrogen worth $600. Phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, and carbon, you total those all up, it's worth about $200. So Jack, I ran these numbers and I was blown away by what organic matter can do for nutrients.
So you said you had the numbers and I checked those out just from a simple value. At 1%, you're getting about $800 worth of nutrients in your soil. If you can get that up to 2%, you've doubled it. If you have an awesome soil and continuously increase it year after year after year, you have almost $5,000 worth of nutrients that are there for you to use.
Absolutely, and now that's something we can't do overnight. It's going to take some time, it's going to take some patience, but we got to make a start somewhere, right, Jack?
Hey, Jim, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Absolutely.
Act 3, the trouble with tillage.
Well, Jack, I did some traveling during Christmas time, and one of the things I learned real quick, and we learned around here, if you're going to travel, the road's got to be open, right? And so when we look at our soils and we look at them, and we start to till these soils up, plant root metabolism, which is absolutely crippled. Those subsurface highways are torn apart. And also, this tillage tears apart something that's called a plant-fungal association. It really tears them apart. They're severed. And so really, here's what happens. It's a complex, symbiotic relationship between these plant roots and these mycelial fungal mats. Not all plants do it, not all fungus do it, but they do it. So here's what happens, this diagram on the right. The plant's got the little green leaves, it's got the little yellow roots, right? Fused in with that root system is the purple lines with the purple dots. That's the mycelial mat. That's that symbiotic relationship that these two plants maintain. Here's the deal. The amazing thing is that plant provides sugar and it provides carbon to the fungus. In return, the fungus says, thanks a lot. I'll give you some water and some minerals. Jack, in my soil, the roads are open and I'm traveling.
Well, see, we still have a little bit of water left in mine. It seems my soil highway is sort of shut down. I guess that'll happen when you explode your roads.
Right.
Without that two-way exchange, you can't get those plant sugars you were talking about, that gas exchange you need to create that healthy plant network and that healthy fungal network. It doesn't stretch out as far as yours is. You can see from this picture here that it just doesn't go as far. And without that reach, you can't take in the soil and the water and the nutrients you need.
Absolutely. Slave! All right, Jack, I got to come clean with you on this one.
All right, be real.
And I'm being real with you. I'm being right down to level. If we can get the floor camera on. We went out about, what, a week ago to the Plant Materials Center.
That's about
out
right.
there. And I've seen this demonstration on video, and I was very skeptical. Absolutely skeptical. I'm a soil scientist for 25 years. But this is an amazing demo. Let's hope it goes right, huh?
All right.
All right. We just got glass cylinders here filled with regular old tap water, and we've got some little screens that we made, all right? And we're going to set those in there, and then what we're going to do is that we're going to drop these soil PEDs into the cylinders. And I'll put a little white backer board behind it so you can see. I've got a PED of that 35-year no-till soil full of roots and life.
All right, I've got that same conventional till soil that blew all around earlier today.
All right, so we're going to drop these now. We'll set them in and we'll see what happens. Go ahead, Jack, nice and slow.
All right. Jim, my ped's falling apart.
Yeah, I noticed that, Jack. What's going on? Mine seems to be kind of holding up there on top of the column. What's going on inside that ped?
Well, it seems that as all the water rushed in, it sort of just broke itself apart. It's got like a flood rushing into your house. And without all that organic material that you have in yours, it's just sort of falling apart there. I don't know if there's much I can still do with it.
Oh, I think you're done. Well, you know, let's see what mine does when I lift it out of there. The same motion it's holding together, Jack.
Oh, wow.
You know, Jack, if you needed a drink of water, mine would still be okay.
No dirt shake for me today.
All right, Jack. All right, if we can switch back to the PowerPoint. All right, I love this quote. I found this old dude. He's neat. He's awesome. It's awesome. It's Paracelsius. Maybe it rings a bell to some of you high school students. The Celsius temperature scale, right? You all know about that, right? He invented it. Anyway, he was this cool soil scientist from about the 1200s, and I just love him. I love his outfit. It's the coolest thing ever. He said, all is interrelated. Heaven and earth, air and water. All are but one thing. Not four, not two, not three, but one. Where they are not together, there is only an incomplete piece.
So just sort of a breakdown, and you have the entire list that I could run through for days and days on how damaging it is to sort of till your soil. The aggregates it destroys, the amount of salt that it lets in, the plant weeds that it lets in. It reduces your crop armor that I had talked about. So all these things seem to be the big culprit in our problem. But our conventionally tilled agricultural soils, it's not so much they have a water erosion problem or a runoff problem. The big problem, as you can see there, is infiltration.
So that water's not moving in, so it moves out, doesn't it? All right. Well, also, just to talk about tillage a little bit more, when we talk about tillage, it really does disrupt pore space. It really does break about structural units. It destroys the interconnectivity of that soil network that needs to be in place. What's the result? That water cannot move into the soil. It's held up on the top, and if there's any slope on the land, it runs off. And Jack, not only does it take that water with it, that free rainfall, it takes your soil with it.
And, you know, being from Arizona, that's a huge, huge problem because we don't have a lot of rainfall. So any free water you get, and it sometimes seems that water is more expensive than gold, you don't want that rushing off into your neighbor's farm.
It's interesting, as Jack and I were cruising around the last week, we have ditches in Michigan to take water away, and we have too much. They have ditches in Arizona to bring water to them. It's a pretty weird diametric thing.
So let's just sort of break this down and hammer it home. We've talked about the pore spaces. I think that our marbles and sand will really dry this in.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll grab that white cover in a minute.
All
So the same glass cylinders. What I've got in mine is I've got little teeny tiny white marbles, glass marbles. And this really sort of duplicates, if you will, soil PEDs within the soil column. They're really distinct units, and we're going to put them in there and see what happens. What do you got, Jack?
All right, I've got just everyday regular sand, no nutrients, no organic matter, and sort of just collapsed and show those PEDs that have been tilled and your soil highways have fallen apart.
All right, well, I got some green water.
I've got red again.
And remember, we can't get the place wet, so stop pouring when it gets full.
All right.
Huh.
You're just pouring away, Jim, aren't you? Okay.
Yeah, I might be here a while, Jack.
All this left.
Yeah, Well, that's kind of sad, Jack, really.
Pour a little
You
bit.
can add a little more.
You can add a little bit more.
Yeah,
I can catch up. That's close.
Well, Jack, hold your pitcher up. All right, well, it looks like that pore space really, really does matter. So this is a really graphic demonstration of how soil beds and those spaces in between them maintain and hold soil moisture.
Exactly.
You know, this would make a great Christmas decoration.
I'll remember that.
All right, now, one of the things that tillage will do, it'll really accelerate the decomposition of organic matter. And Jack and I were talking about this graphic. I'm really glad I wasn't the guy in the picture that had to hook up those 20 or 25 horses. I bet he was up early that morning and probably plowed for 3 days because it took him that long to get finished. But as we start to decompose or oxidize organic matter, it takes large string hydrocarbons and starts to break them down into smaller pieces. One of the biggest culprits of organic carbon loss is CO2 coming off that soil surface. Also, when we break big pieces of carbon down into little, they leach out of that soil profile, gone from the plants. And then finally, we talk about accelerated erosion rates, and we've been demonstrating this, Jack. It really makes a big difference. Soil compaction, a huge thing. Picture on the left. Our legend says the soil particles are gray, the water is blue, and the airspace is white. If we look at a healthy, normal, high organic matter soil that's been minimally tilled, 50% of the soil isn't there. It's 50% air, it's 25% water, and it is 25% soil particles. When you start to take the organic matter out, you start to compact that soil. It can't hold water, gases cannot exchange, water is not as available for those plants. So it really results in that compacted layer. 3 culprits, Jack, real quickly. Conventional tillage operations, wheeled vehicles, and if we're not rotating our crops. We really need to get crops on the ground that have different rooting depths, that have different root size, and roots that go to different penetration levels.
So I want to talk about here sort of my favorite things, the animal source.
Absolutely.
You get your arthropods, your nematodes, and all those things are in the middle sector, sort of the keystone of life in this food web, right? And so if you plow through and you till it, you destroy their homes. Without them there, they don't get to work back and forth with the soils and with the plants. And without them there, they're not eaten by the larger animals, by your birds, that we later on eat. So you take out that keystone, and the left and the right side both just collapse upon itself.
Absolutely. So this picture here is sort of a montage of all of those critters that are in the mid-zone of that soil ecosystem. And some recent research has shown that those small animals, especially microarthropods, you've seen them, the roly-polies, right? That's just one of them. But really, within 5 years, if we actively and aggressively till the soil, they're gone. Their house has been torn down, and they've left the area. Elvis has left the building, so to speak, when that happens. So really, some amazing research has shown that soil fungi and bacteria, as we showed, the base of that soil food pyramid, will outdo plants every time for nutrients. Every time. It is those critters in the middle, Jack, of this food web that keep those soil fungus and bacteria in check and allow those plants to take up nutrients. We lost the keystone, Jack.
So when you see it, you lose that protective cover, you lose that armor that I was talking about earlier. And without that armor, your soil becomes very splashy and your particles fall upon themselves and they clog up your roadways. And with those clogged roadways, you don't get the infiltration you need. Without that infiltration, you get the runoff and you lose your soil, you lose more water, you lose all these things that can simply be protected by putting on armor.
Absolutely. This is a great picture. This is some research that was done recently. We'll kind of look at it a little bit, and I'll try to get my pointer to work. There's the dividing line between a conventionally tilled plot over here and a no-till-ish conventional tillage with a lot of crop residue. So this plot on the left-hand side of the screen has got very little structure. They simulated a rainfall event on it, and absolutely this soil crusted over. Here's what I found devastating about what happened here. If we look closely, there's some plants there, but right here, look at this row. No plants germinating, no plants germinating in the next row. Let's move next door to that lower tillage area. Every single row of plants has germinated. Really important to keep these soils covered any way we can because it really absorbs raindrop impact like we've talked about, Jack, and it also prevents evaporation from that surface. And as we saw in the video of the rainfall simulator, those pedestals have literally built up. Those little plants are growing up on a little teepee of soil. Their root contact is not good with the ground.
Jim?
Closer than you can even imagine. All right, here we are. Everyone's got one, right? All right, so, you know, there is a jungle, an absolute jungle full of life in your belly button.
All right, I can sort of see the comparisons there. There's a huge jungle of life in soil.
All right, so here's the deal, all right? We've started training people. We're going to take this show on the road. Maybe we should rename it the Belly Button Project.
Belly Button Project.
Yeah, we can compare belly buttons to soil and sort of teach people about it. Well, what do you think?
All right, let's see what they have in common.
All right, well, you know, your belly button, every one of yours, is crawling with billions and billions of bacteria. Different shapes, different sizes, different appetites. Here's the deal, guys. We all got them. They're belly buttons. They're warm. They're moist. They're dark. They're great at growing bacteria. I love this term. The tiny bacteria in the jungle of microbial diversity in your belly button, they're pretty harmless. And finally, everybody in the room is different. So is your belly button. It's got a different cast of characters.
All right, Jim, I think I'm following you. On that flip side, and we think about the soil, it has billions of critters. It's got bacteria and fungi and earthworms and arthropods, and they have different sizes, shapes, and they eat all kinds of things, so I follow you there. The temperature, it varies a bit, but it is dark and moist, and it's perfect for soil life.
Right.
All right, so I got you on that one, too. All right, there are tiny critters in this microbial jungle that you're so fond of. All right, so, and they're pretty harmless.
Right.
All right, so everybody's belly button's different. All the soil critters are different. Two sides of the same coin there, Jim.
We got to take this on the road.
All right.
All right, soil is worth a little bit of a closer look. Some close-ups, some micron electron graphs here. If we zoom in on soil, if you take that handful of soil and really draw down tight on it, it's a virtual rucksack, if you will, full of sticky strings. More about those sticky strings later, Jack. Soil particles, sand, silt, clay, bits of organic material, leaf residue, all sorts of stuff. And what's in there, Jack, is this amazing, amazing sticky glue. We're going to talk about it in a minute. But also there's this amazing mesh of roots. And Jack, this amazing mesh of roots holds everything together.
All right.
And it's kind of like this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty amazing, isn't it?
Okay.
So if we look at an average bucket full of soil, this is what would be the sum total of the mycelial mesh that is present in that soil at a microscopic level. It's amazing. So as you can see, the soil particles are held very much together inside this mesh. It's an amazing part. It's what keeps the soil on the landscape, Jack.
So that's what's keeping your soil from falling apart still, right now?
Absolutely. We look back in the cylinder. This has got that mesh around it. We'll lift it up very slowly again, and it's still holding together pretty much, even after being in the water for about 15 minutes. Amazing, amazing.
So that's the thing. Thing one and thing two between your roots and how everything sort of works together in that symbiotic relationship. If you have those thin roots, they become lean, mean, nutrient-snatching machines, and they can gear up a lot of stuff. But they have a partner, sort of symbiotic relationship.
Is that thing two?
That's thing two.
All right.
It sort of sits on top and helps reach out, and it breaks down and unlocks the chemical bonds of your phosphorus, your sulfur, your nitrogen, and all those other forms of things your crops need. Now with that fungal, it can reach out and take up 6 times more phosphorus than just your root zone alone.
Amazing. The thing one and thing two are pretty darn amazing. Oh, we got a little new term, the giant term for the day. I love this one. It's arbuscular mycorrhizae. We'll have a quiz at 11.
So you've got all these different things, this jungle of life. You have mammals and earthworms and slugs and microflora and fauna and bacteria and algae, and then all these different things that live in the soil fauna and microbial action, they equal to the grazing of 2 African elephants per acre.
So, you know, Jack, I'm kind of a National Geographic kind of kid, always was. So I needed to prepare something for myself to really understand what this meant.
All right.
So once you get home, if you see this, would you text me a picture of it? Because
right.
I certainly would love to see it. Well, here it is. That's 80 elephants on 40 acres. So as we drive through the landscape, we have to look at that and look at that 40-acre piece of ground, or 2 acres, but in this 40, there's the equivalent of 80 elephants out there moving through, and that is the biology total with that underground fauna and flora.
That's a lot of life out there, Jim.
It sure is, Jack. Here's your friends.
Speaking of my favorite form of life, in my opinion, is the MVP of that middle web. It sort of has the best job of creating over 2,000 miles of pore spaces and 750 miles of pencil-thick pore spaces. And it goes and it mixes up the soil. There's no need for a plow when you have an earthworm, Jim. It's free labor and it's great for the soil.
Absolutely. And I can give a copy of this presentation to you, that web link down there. This guy's got video taken at night of worms on the soil surface. It's like they're out there raking the surface. They're moving leaves around. It's absolutely in a crazy, crazy bit of footage. You know, finally, to kind of wind up towards this end of this tillage section, as we till soils, it really does butcher the biology of the soil. It cuts, it slices, it dices, and it really blends, it mixes, it inverts, it creates havoc for that soil biology. When we think about biology of our soil, we need to have an intact ecosystem. Top to bottom, in order. They're in that order for a reason. But as we start to till, we start to break that ecosystem apart, Jack.
Act 5, glomalin, mysterious soil stickum.
Oh, I love this part. I love this part. So here it is. This is glomalin, or other people call it glumalin, all right? And it is the sticky star of the soil show, Jack.
So you have this, and it's sort of that, it holds our carbon gold together. And it's brown naturally, but you see that we've dyed it here green just to make it a bit more visually popping. So you have this, and it's sort of a byproduct of that fungal interaction with those plants that you were talked about earlier.
Exactly.
And it's a great example that the more glomalin in your soil, the more effective and healthier that soil probably is.
So here's how it works. It's in the soil everywhere, and it's amazing. It's been there forever. It's just in the last 10 years that research has found this. It is a USDA employee in one of our labs that found glomalin. And it's an amazing, amazing story. So glomalin stabilizes soil beds. It's on the outside. It's like a waxy coat. It also is inside of the bed, sticking things together like soil superglue. And really, it is the most important molecule we're finding in soil aggregate stabilization. And finally, when we talk about that, the chemistry of that glomalin, that sticky soil star of the show, makes it an ideal stabilizing coat to hold those beds together, Jack.
All right. All this talk about getting all these things together, I'm feeling crafty.
You're feeling crafty?
I'm feeling crafty. I want to build something.
Let's do some craft, Jack.
Let's build a soil.
Awesome.
Jim,
all right.
Jim, do you want to build a soil?
I would love to build a soil. All right, so what do we got? Jack, come on this side.
All right.
All right. So, Jack, let's let this be sand.
Okay.
All right.
And these medium sized will be sort of silty.
Silty, okay, I got one of those. Now hold on a second, let me grab a couple. How about these little guys? What could they be?
All right, we have clay and organic matter.
Okay.
All right.
So here, let's work.
I've got mine
together.
here.
No, you
all
hold
right,
those there.
teamwork.
No,
all right.
Stay there.
So, all right.
Okay.
Balance.
Okay, balance. You got it?
I got it. No, I don't got it, Jim.
Hold on, Jack. Hold on, Jack. We got to try something different
All right,
here.
we're missing something.
We're missing something here. All right, well, let's see what we got here. Jack, is there anything else we can use here? Oh, we got some cool stuff. Let's see what we can do, Jack. Just you and I, all right?
All right.
Hey, use some of these nice little fibers to help hold the roots together.
Okay.
Cool. Look at that. We're building soil beds. This is amazing.
Fantastic. And let's see, this can be sort of like a root system.
Oh, absolutely, that could be a root system. So let me hold that for you, and you can
right.
put those two together.
It
Absolutely.
in, bind it all together.
Absolutely. I got another one here. I'm going to twist that a little tighter.
All right.
I want it to stick together, right? All right, so we're building a soil bed here. This is really, really cool. All right, stick that in there. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let's do a few smaller ones in to show those clay-sized particles, all right? I'm going to stick that one in there, and maybe stick that out like that, Jack. This is really awesome, all right?
It's all together.
And you know what I love about roots? Sometimes they're neon blue, too, so we can wrap some roots around there. Sometimes roots are pink, too, Jack. I love those pink roots.
Roots come in all shapes and colors.
Sizes. Absolutely.
So,
wow, look at that. Maybe let's do just a couple more, Jack. Let's stick that to there, and that in there.
This is it's coming together pretty well, but I still feel like we're missing something.
We're missing something. All right, we got this soil bed, but what have we been talking about?
The sticky star of the soil show.
So if we start to stick that together with some glomalin, we are really in good shape, Jack.
Perfect.
Look at what we have created. We have created our very own soil pad. Now this will be available for one of you to take home if you would like it. There it is, our sticky soil pad. All right, to kind of wrap this piece up, there's a little picture of what we just made. We've got soil aggregation. It's a super complex process, much more complex than what we saw here. An amazing, amazing thing. It holds together mineral and organic matter with root fibers and glomalin, and so it ends up looking like that nice soil pad that we made, all stuck together with glomalin, Jack.
Act 6, H2O retention and CO2 release.
You know, Jack, one of the most important things we've talked about, and we're hammering it home one more time, is water retention. Now remember, as we increase soil organic matter in as little as from 1 to 3%, we can double the amount of soil water that is held in that soil. We also talk about that pronounced effect that soil organic matter has on holding water. The research is really starting to come in now that organic matter is the key. Great example here. If we take and look at the available water holding capacity of a silt loam, very common soil here in Michigan, with 4% organic matter, and then we look at a silt loam, the same soil that has been tilled down to 1%, that 4% organic matter soil carries twice as much water around with it. An amazing thing for a very little bit of organic matter in the soil.
All right, so sort of just to break down what you said and give it into a more graphic, you can see that as you increase your organic matter, you increase your water holding capacity.
Absolutely.
The bigger your bucket, the bigger your sponge, the more water you can hold on to.
That's an amazing graph. So by adding organic matter, I can keep that free reign in my soil.
There you go.
Absolutely. Little chart here, just to kind of think about how that organic matter has to be. It has to be applied as left as a crop residue or as a cover crop. Let's look at some basic trends here where we switch. Right here, as we increase the soil cover, look at that, our runoff dramatically decreases as soil cover increases. The opposite relationship is as we increase soil cover, infiltration increases. I think we saw that in the rainfall simulator, Jack.
So let's bring this over to sort of a hot button word that's been thrown around a lot lately. You have your soil carbon sequestration. And just simply put down, soil carbon sequestration is just the process of transferring carbon dioxide from the atmosphere into the soil. You take your carbon sequestration, and it's better to improve your water structure, your infiltration rate, and continuous no-till of your crops is the prime example of ways to increase this.
Or if it couldn't even be no-till, how about a little bit of reduced tillage, Jack?
Every little bit helps.
Every little bit helps, absolutely.
So you said you were a graphic guy, so let me break it down to you in pictures. You think of all the CO2 that we've been breathing out today, running our mouth, and you bring it in with the plants through photosynthesis.
All right.
And they take that in, and they store it underground, sort of that carbon bank you were talking about earlier.
Right.
And it holds on there, and that carbon is used by all that microlife to sort of process and get everything that the plants need. And they give it back off into the air, where the plants take it back up again. And sort of continues the cycle of give and take, give and take, give and take, over and over again.
Awesome. So we got a bank, and we got a way to take stuff in and out of the bank.
There you go.
Amazing, amazing. Let's wind up here. This is sort of where we started this morning. One more act after this one. The star of our show has been organic matter. And as we think about organic matter, it has a central role in every soil. Let's look at physical functions. We talked about the stability of soil beds and what organic matter does. Here's that low organic matter soil, one dunk and that bed is gone. It's history. So it also provides those nutrients we talk about, Jack, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur. It also is very, very, very important as far as water retention, very important. Chemical functions, cation exchange, just a fancy word. A cation is an ion that has a positive charge, magnesium or calcium. Plants need a ton of it. It's this organic matter that holds on and complexes those ions. There's a lot to do with buffering. There's a lot to do with complexes of cations. That's for a higher level talk. We're going to go by that. And finally, Jack, one of the things we really need to talk about, and we've talked about, that biology is fueled by that organic matter in the soil. As we started this talk, it is about organic matter. It's about retaining carbon in the soil.
More than that, it's about co-creating this
vibrant terra firma.
Act 7, a dance